The Pagas was an image that went back and forth quite a bit. The Pagas are the orc race in the Amethyst setting. Originally, I had an idea in mind of what an orc should look like, but they said, no, 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 the Pagas should look more human, but like a big human, more intelligent and less monster-like, like a big professional wrestler, or like Nathan Jones was one reference that they gave me. Nathan Jones from Troy, just some really huge guy. So I sent them a few sketches, and they came back and said, no, we want someone more like an Ultimate Fighter, somebody that just looks really mean, but not necessarily so much of a bodybuilder or so muscle bound. And so we kind of went back and forth like that until we were able to settle on a look that they were happy with. And I'm glad that we took the time, because the Pagas are an important race to make sure that we got right. I believe that the image ended up being really strong and represents the Pagas really well. And an interesting byproduct of that whole process was that we developed the half Pagas race. And the Pagas ended up being one of my favorite races in the entire setting.
It's interesting when he brings up the Pagas. The idea of the original Pagas were just really big guys, which is where the big wrestler came out of. You look at people like Brock Lesnar, for example, another example of a UFC fighter. You say, oh, he'd be like a Pagas. And then we started thinking about it, and we went, no, I don't think we want to. I think it was Conan and me that were talking about it, and Conan really pushed the idea that he shouldn't just look like a bodybuilder. There should be something that makes them inhuman. So we had the idea of the fact that they would be tall, built, but not overweight. And not only that, but there would be something slightly off about them. And one thing we did, we pushed, was the slightly longer than average arms. So despite being tall, they still, on top of being tall, have this incredible long reach, longer than they should have, and which allows them to just reach right over a sword and just grab the head of whoever is trying to attack them. And then, of course, with their setting, with the details of their race, they're also pale skin, they're white, and they have these raised veins because of bruising because of rapid aging. Because we wanted to go very mirror opposite than what people have for their traditional orc type opponent race in this setting, which is what Pagas are. There are orcs, but instead of being these dark, hunked over creatures, I wanted to go the opposite. So we made them pale and very exposed instead of being black skin and bad teeth and so forth. We want these to be very, very different and also still equally frightening. Some of these pieces, of course, like this one, which is one of my group's favorite photos, because it personifies Amethyst as a game setting in one image. It is one of the most popular images within my group. I think the fan base likes this one a lot because it tells you the most about the setting in one image. Because you have the security personnel with advanced weaponry, fearful, pointing it at this elf girl in this simple clothing, floating above the ground. You can see the gauges on the right-hand side being fractured. You can see the lights on the floor have gone out where she is, and the only light is in the room where these guys are.
The other races, particularly the Elvish races, the Tenembri, the Tylan, the Laudinians, Damascans, they were fun to work on as well. My favorite race by far, though, was the Naros. I love the way the typical dwarf race has been tweaked slightly here and there to become this really well-defined people. I like that they come from the same origins as the elf races, but I can see them taking great offense to being compared to them. I like the Asian influence in their architecture and in their fashion, and I can really relate to their love of hard work as well as hard play.
It was actually surprisingly enough the Dwarves, which is probably the single reason Nick is involved in the project. When I was looking for inspiration for Amethyst before it became a published product, I was looking around to these different websites to get inspiration from online artists. I found a Nick's site, and I'd noticed him drawing this dwarf monk for another role-playing game, and I realized when it was saying that he had a fantastic grasp of creating an actual realistic race. They're not caricatures. They're not he's not exaggerating features. It looked like it was the most realistic looking dwarf I had ever seen. Because it looked like a dwarf and it wasn't a cliche. It wasn't a Tolkien dwarf and it still looked like a dwarf. And I realized then like that is a fantastic dwarf, and I actually used that image as inspiration for the Narrows. So it was always logical to approach Nick to do that. So, and then of course we were able to create a new dwarf race, the Narrows, which is inspired by Nick's own artwork. So when I said to Nick about what should you just take inspiration, I said, well, look at your own artwork. Look at what you're doing. The challenge, of course, was to make a new dwarf that was similar in style to what he had drawn previously, but was unique to our setting, which included the Asian features, not over exaggerating the muscle mass, and to make it seem that it was just a shortened person who was very, very tough and had these sharp features. There was definitely an Asian influence both to their culture and to their fashion, and that's how we made that race unique. But it's ironic because the dwarf is actually one of the reasons why Nick is actually on the project.
One of my favorite images to work on, related to the races, even though it was more of a prestige class than a race, was the Bilateral Integrated Gnomish Engineering Expertier, or Biggie for short. The Gimp race looked like they would just be so much fun to hang around with. These guys look like they really know how to have fun. The Biggie image with that Gimp carrying two huge technologically advanced weapons, as well as all that gear and sporting that devilish grin. That was a real treat to work on. He looks like he's having a blast. Pun intended, by the way. The Gimpfin's ability to overcome the magical disruption of technology leads me to my second favorite thing about the Amethyst setting, and that's the setting itself. The fact that it doesn't exist in some other dimension or on some distant planet. It's set here on Earth, but not in some fictional medieval history. It could happen a year from now, or at any time, really. I'm able to suspend my belief much easier because the setting fits in so easily here. Where there are these huge bastion cities walled off from the wilderness outside. These little pockets of technology that we enjoy today. I mean, the internet, our cars, the stores that we shop at, our telephones, restrooms, all these things we enjoy today are the same things in these bastions. But outside of that is this wilderness filled with all these fantastic creatures that I've read about all my life. And the thought of being able to interact with that kind of environment is incredible to me. No matter how dangerous it would be, I probably wouldn't last all of 5 minutes in some kind of environment like that.